So the very first thing you want to do to create an internal ambassadors team is you want to start to develop your pitch, just like we would developing a pitch to pitch a new client. You really want to start to find ways that you can articulate your idea that really connects with the business. So one of the first ways to do this is to find a way where your idea is connecting to a larger company goal or initiative, whether that's for the quarter or for the year or for the next 5 years. So start there. Once you're there, then what you can do is you can start to build a case for the impact that this project will have on the business. That's by using perhaps the number of hours that could be saved by doing this. It could be the hard cost saved by reducing your software expenses elsewhere. This type of thing can really help build your case for the company. And another thing that you can do at the very beginning as you are starting to develop this pitch is you can find a partner, potentially outside partner like Crema, to help you pitch the idea. They can help you start to suss out what you're trying to do with the business, because you might have a good concept in your own mind, but when you try to open up a blank document, it might be hard to get that onto paper. And so you can engage with another agency or another partner or outside contractor to help shape the idea. They have some skin in the game, because if they can help you shape the idea and sell in the idea, then they can potentially win the business. And so you could use that to your advantage during this process to make sure that you refine your idea in a way that their business is really going to understand it. So the next thing that you can do is you can create a champion team. This is going to be a team that really is going to understand what you're trying to do with the business, but can also provide you really valuable feedback throughout the process so that you can continue to refine this pitch before you bring it to the larger leadership team or other individuals in your company who might need to be sold on this idea. This doesn't have to be an extremely formal process. This can be talking about your idea over drinks or over lunch, or you're out for dinner or whatever it might be. This should be a trusted group of individuals that can give you this type of feedback. And again, once you do have something more solid, then you can set up a more formal meeting to potentially even practice your pitch with them before you go to the larger team. So the final steps in the process before you really go to your leadership team is to go a little bit outside your champion team. Now you're looking for some critics in your company who you think that might not be up for this idea whatsoever. These people are going to be really great for you to not only practice on, but also help refine your idea even further. Because again, your goal is that you want to remove all objections from the pitch before you get it to the leadership team, so that it seems like such an obvious idea that the business should explore that you just go for it. So one example that I have where we had a potential new client come to us, this was an individual who knew that if they did this initiative, it was going to save many hours, and it was also going to help with turnover, and it was going to create a better client experience for their clients. But she didn't quite know the steps that she needed to take in order to go through this. She had never done product before. She knew that there was an idea here, but she really didn't have a great way to pitch it. So she engaged with us, and we worked with her over the span of about 3 months and really helped shape what this could look like. She was able to use all the information that we got in order to put it into a proposal deck for their entire leadership team. And it just made the case very clear that by not doing this, they would actually be getting behind. So this is a really good example of how you can use an agency or a potential contractor or partner to help shape your idea in order to sell it into your leadership team. So as you're exploring these different ideas, you might be trying to figure out how you're going to execute on these ideas. Obviously, you would have the option of hiring a brand new team within your business and going for that and going through the process of that. It might take a while, depending on how your business is set up, before you have a team that's fully ready to jump into this product idea. Another option is to engage with a partner such as Crema, where you do have variability in the team cost, and it's not something that is indefinite, for example. So when you're hiring a brand new team within your business, you pretty much expect them to be there forever, at least that size of the team. You might scale up and down occasionally, but that's not really a variable cost. Whereas when you're partnering with an agency, it can be a variable cost. We can scale up and down the team based on the business needs that change throughout the lifetime of the project. So we might start out with a smaller team, and then we can get started way quicker because we already have the staff available to jump into the work. Whereas you might have to go through the process of figuring out how to build a product organization, which we can certainly help with, but definitely takes quite a bit of time. So another thing to look for as you're trying to reduce risk as you're engaging with a potential partner or vendor is to see how flexible their contracts are. Something that we do here at Crema is we focus on our duration and price model with our clients. So we align on what the objectives are that we're trying to move toward. We make sure that we have a team that's properly sized and allocated for the project, and then we figure out the duration that fits within the budget that the client has. From there, we can drive toward those very important outcomes, but the actual features and functions that are within those outcomes can change based on what is important to the business. And so it never fails. As soon as we start a project, some big thing changes, or we have this big aha moment when we're all together in a room. And that inevitably changes the direction of where we originally thought we were going to go. In a traditional fixed scope model, you would have to then issue a change order and you'd have to go back through contracting again and you'd have to get that all approved. In this case, we have a meeting about it and we move on. One of the downsides of fixed scope vendors is that it often incentivizes using up all the time allocated for anything and everything, even if it's something that's not a priority for the business. And so what you want to make sure is that the team is driving toward the things that matter the most. And that's where this type of model really puts the client in the driver's seat. So that way you can make sure that we're making informed decisions that line up with the overall business and product strategy. So a big example of some business priorities changing. I had a client probably a couple years ago now. They got a new client and this was a major deal for them, multi-million-dollar deal. And we had our roadmap set out for the full year. We knew exactly what we would be doing, maybe not in extreme detail, but again, we knew the outcomes that we were driving toward. Well, this big client that came in really changed the landscape of what the team was driving toward. And so our client came to us and they were a little bit kind of flustered and trying to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to build this. And we intook all the information. We understood what we needed to do, and it wasn't something that was easy, but it was something that we could then pull our whole team together, and we came up with, if I remember it correctly, 3 or 4 different options for the client to go down where it achieves the goals that they're trying to achieve with their big new client. And yes, it did change our roadmap, but the team simply shifted over to that. There was no changes in our contracting. It was as simple as that, and then within the next week, our sprint all changed to drive in that direction, and we ended up meeting that goal for that client, and then their client was completely satisfied. So that's just one example of how flexible contracts can really help you reduce the risk as you're exploring these new endeavors. So one thing that you should be looking for as you're starting to evaluate new partners or vendors is to make sure that you understand how they evaluate risks throughout the lifetime of the product. How can they help you make informed decisions of what level of risk you need to take in order to achieve your outcomes? So one example of this is that when we're estimating in a sprint, for example, there's a certain number of story points, and that's for another video. But what those story points essentially say is this is how risky this feature is. This is how many things that are unknown about this piece of work that if we go for it, it's likely going to be a big payoff, but we might need to do some further investigation to make that work less risky. And you can help us understand your own level of risk during that process. So that way you're in the driver's seat of the work that we're doing.